Okay, so we see that we started off with an auditorium that has a lot more people. We ended up with this many, I think, but I think we have to be happy because this was a wonderful conference. Personally, I learned a lot. There are lots of things that I did not know until I sat through this conference. But of course, we need, in closing, in trying to close this conference, we have to talk about the notion of maritime heritage. Now, I've learned from Andrea that heritage means the passing on of something from the past. So what is it that we are trying to pass on? So this is one of the questions we want to explore in this conference. And of course, we can talk about passing on expertise, technologies, and also tangible things like ships and harbors. But I think maybe, when we talk about maritime heritage, we can talk about the passing on of something that is far greater than these things, these small little things. So I like to think that in this Maritime Heritage Conference, we are discussing how we can pass on a kind of human spirit. The kind of spirit that is not afraid of seeing the sea or the ocean as a challenging frontier, and where especially in the earlier days, well, today because we have GPS and we have satellite imaging, we know every corner of this earth, but I'm sure that in the early days, the sea is a very forbidding place, because if you look out to the horizon, you see effectively what lies beyond the seas is unknown to humankind. And that's perhaps what is firing up the imagination of the young at heart when they read about or watch One Piece and piracy. And so we have heard from many speakers in this conference talking about maritime expansions, going as far back as the Greeks and the Romans, on the one end, and of course the Han Chinese on the other end, and of course before that, in prehistoric times, we have the expansion of the Polynesians out into the Indian Ocean as well as the Pacific Ocean. We heard about the Fromoro project, how it is a project of the people of Venice to gain access to the global maritime trade network that has just become fully connected from all the little pieces that are regional networks. We heard about the short-lived Chinese maritime expansion. We've heard of the much longer, the much more successful Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch, and British expansions. We heard also about the expansion of ideologies, not just commercial trade, not just commerce, but Hinduism, following that Buddhism, and following that Islam. When we heard about Chinese settlements in Malacca and Singapore, and also, of course, I didn't know of this before this conference, and of the Chinese settlement in Manila. I think these stories are testaments to the kind of human spirit that was involved. That there's unknown places out there that we want to be, and they allow us to test our own tenacities in the face of uncertainties. So maritime heritage must be fundamentally about the passing on of this kind of human spirit. So it is about ports, but not just about ports. It is about ships, but not just about ships. So the question is, if it is about us, so we must never, and if it is about us, so why do we feel that maritime heritage is under threat? So I think part of the reason has been given by Venka when he spoke about containerization of the maritime industry, that in the quest of efficiency, we have taken humans out of the picture. And of course, Stefan painted an even more gloomy picture, where in the future we will have crewless ships. So the maritime sphere will be populated by robots, and we will be happily on land. And maybe it's because we have gotten too soft. And in the early maritime history of our species, of course, life was hard, and maritime expansion is a means of economic expansion to improve our lives. And maritime economics was then therefore an extension of this particular human spirit. In contrast, by present day, economics have kind of taken a more preeminent status, and therefore in the interest of efficiency, we have allowed economics to subjugate our human spirit. Therefore, I guess a key question that emerged in this conference is, how do we bring this human spirit to the fore again, vis-a-vis the relationship to the sea? We can think about tourism. In fact, speakers have talked about how we can make use of tourism as a way to secure the future of maritime heritage. But I'm thinking that we don't want to always go for this kind of soft solutions. Obviously, we don't want to completely divorce economics from the picture. If we feel that there is something that can continue to challenge us, and if there's enough people who believe in facing up to this kind of challenge, eventually the economics will catch up. We will be selling, I guess, tickets for sailing races from one end of the Silk Road to the other end of the Silk Road. So those things we don't need to worry about. And let me see what other notes I have here. Okay, so let me compose my thoughts a little bit. So I am saying here that there's this very interesting debate that is going on right now with regards to maritime heritage. There are people who propose there are people who propose to take the economics out of maritime heritage, so that to leave things in its pristine form of its original form, and maybe put them in museums, so that younger generation can come and see them. But that is, I think, not the correct solution to all this. We must impart this message on the younger generation that or maybe not me, but we built up this maritime heritage because we are always facing forward to challenges. So the correct words are not coming, but So I'm hoping that we are able to stimulate the younger generation to again rise up to the maritime challenge. So it will be a different kind of challenge, maybe sports, maybe exploration, but I'm also thinking of a different kind of challenge, and that is the rehabilitation of the seas. Because there's a lot of pollution that we have, damage we have done to the seas. I've heard of islands of rubbish floating in the South China Sea, and obviously nobody is taking responsibility. Obviously that is a global challenge that is in line with the climate change challenge that we're facing right now. And if, let's say, there are enough people rising up to that kind of challenge, obviously the economics will soon catch up. There will be social institutions that will be set in motion to support this kind of changes, and we can actually kind of leave the trade, the maritime trade, to its fully automated conclusion, but yet still maintain a connection to the seas. So, yes, I think that's all I have to say. And the other thing that I would like to add on would be that with Andrea and I, we like to plan conferences not as the end of some research project that we have done, but as the start of an exploration. So I will let Andrea explain to you what kind of exploration we have in mind, and what kind of collaboration we hope to be able to build up with all of you here.
Beginning. So we had the first keynote on day one, Professor Abulafia, who started working on the priority of the sea in intercontinental networks. So the priority of the sea, in order to understand what on this day 3, Captain Francis started to work on, with his wide and powerful vision on one world which is connected by the sea. So it is exactly what maritime heritage and maritime history can do now. And it is a very powerful vision for the humanities. In a world which needs connectivity, high-level connectivity and collaboration to work towards peace, because it's the thing that we really need. We had here, and I tell you this little story because sometimes we forget it. We had here 2 weeks ago the former president of the European Commission, Professor Prodi, who gave a talk at NUS. And he started this talk with something that astonished most of the young students, saying, when I am in a classroom and I tell to young students in Europe that peace is not granted, or when I start to speak about peace, they don't understand. But it is the first time ever in Europe in which we have 3 generations without war. The first time ever. And the point is that it is not granted. And working on it, maritime connectivity, maritime topics, maritime history, maritime heritage can unite. And it's a platform in which we can do a lot. But how to work on it and to fulfill the promise that I had when I started the class with the University Scholars Program at NTU, which is a selection of the best students that NTU has. And NTU gave to the student not only scholarship, but complementary courses, field trips, and all sorts of educational tools. I was honored to teach one of these classes during these years. And this semester we worked on the Silk Roads of the sea. And we tried to understand, and the students made an excellent work. What I'm showing to you now, which is very short, is the storyboard to make an animation. I'm presenting it to you today because I would like to work on 2 different outcomes from this conference. One is to engage you to work on a paper, and I will tell you later on what in particular. And another one is to work on short video animations. Both of the projects should be based on key questions. We will circulate an email in next week, I think, in which we will ask each of the speakers to provide us 3, 4, 5 key questions that they figured out from this conference. After that, we will discuss it in a meeting here at NTU, and we will follow up in order to ask you to present a paper based on key questions that we are figuring out. And this paper, as we were discussing with Professor Abulafia, will be a proposal for a book on maritime something. We don't even have a tentative title. Maybe we have something, so connecting by sea or whatever, but we don't really have a specific title. And to work for a proposal for a book at Cambridge University Press, which will be the first step. The other one is to have for each of you, to provide to each of you, the possibility to have a short video clip, 3-4 minutes video clip. How to work on it in a heritage science perspective is to connect all the data that we have in the present. And I'll show you the example of this small class, which it was quite a small class, of students coming from the humanities, business, engineering, and life sciences. They worked on the concept of the Silk Road. I think you see it here? Yes. The question was investigating where we come from and understanding where we are today. Can we predict what's next? And they looked at the maritime landscape. So looking at the sailing, the containers now, the camels, or the big trains, what's next? And second thing is the Silk Road as a case study for heritage science. I think they really got what we meant for heritage science. And they studied and they worked on our papers. But apart that, and they presented the teamwork that we had here, and they started to work on the main concept. So saying, in its inception, the term was used in Ferdinand von Richthofen's China, as we saw in Professor Kua's presentation on day 1. And Richthofen put the Silk Road in one page of his 4-volume work on China, plus the atlas. It was just one page. And we can see here the page. It identifies Marinus of Tyre, overland route from the Mediterranean to the borders of the land of silk, Serica, as the Romans called China. So just a small fragment in a book written in German at the end of the 19th century. However, Richthofen also uses the term in the plural, Seidenstrassen, for routes both east and west of the Pamirs, but not yet to the concept that we have now, to this big thing of the Silk Road. So, since the very beginning, and the student has this brilliant illumination, since the very beginning, Silk Road, or Seidenstrasse, as it was in German, has been used as a synecdoche. That is a figure of speech in which a part is made to represent the entire, the whole which is the entire that this synecdoche represents. Actually, it is a double synecdoche. Silk Road is one good, silk, to represent all Eurasian trade and commerce, everything. And road is one segment, one little fragment, represent all intercontinental communication networks. So whoever is looking for the Silk Road or the Silk Roads is failing. It is a network. It is a wide network, and we saw it working on hubs in the maritime network. So hubs are these big emergencies of in the network. But we have all the other little ports, like Federico was presenting us in his problem on how to identify the port in which the Romans bought the pepper or purchased pepper. And on that they work on, and the other question that is still posing, but how did a German word used just a few times in late 1800 become the key word to identify Eurasian networks by land and sea? It was quite a smart question that we didn't find in books or paper. How did it happen? And they looked on the Google at books and keywords, like Stephen did in his talk. And over the years, Richthofen's students, Hermann, Hedin, and Stein, published books about their travels. And you can see what we are going to animate. So 1910, 11, 12, in the 30s, 50s, 60s, 70s, but the boom in the popularity of the Silk Roads came through a television spectacular in the 1980s. It is a big shift, the big change. It is a co-production of the Japanese TV and the Chinese TV, a 40-episode series that spread it around the world and got in the brains of all of us. All the imagination about the Silk Roads that we have come from these pieces of documentaries. And since then, the Silk Road has been used as a metaphor. And metaphor, the students work very well to find out another figure of speech. We had quite two good students in communication. And this figure of speech in which a word or phrase is used for something to which it is not literally applicable. So the metaphor is something, we are using something to identify something to which is not exactly applicable. So we are making a shift. And here comes the shift. We got it in Professor Kua's talk. The students here went deeper, and I was very, very pleased to listen at the talks here and to see how students in their BA worked quite hard here. So in 2016, Chinese leader Xi Jinping made a new proposal to the countries around China. So they realized that it was a proposal. And in Kazakhstan, September 2013, the Silk Road Economic Belt was the proposal. After that, in Indonesia, October 2013, 21st century maritime Silk Road. So a month after the other, this proposal comes out. And the students realize that it's not by chance that these things happen, you know. And this time the metaphor is for a new Silk Road, which labels the proposal that China is making to the surrounding countries in Asia, Africa, and Europe to boost connectivity under the umbrella of, and here it is, One Belt, One Road is an integrated initiative, Maritime Silk Road sea-based, and Silk Road Economic Belt land-based, which uses the Silk Road to brand Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and here the business school students came out, established in October 2014 by 22 Asian countries. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank aims to complement existing multilateral development banks to jointly cater to Asia's infrastructure needs. And the other one is the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which is worth of $100 billion. And on top of it, we have the second one, which is the Silk Road Infrastructure Fund, both established in 2014. So the program was the promotion of a proposal. And in this way, the students started to connect these two kinds of information. And they picked really up what Siew and I were proposed in a couple of papers that they read carefully, and they made case studies. And here comes the case study. So they started to pick up the number. What does it mean, this proposal that came out in 2013? So over 60 countries so far have agreed to this proposal. And the students were picking up this kind of data. What does it mean in word GDP? What does it mean in word industrial production? What does it mean in word population? In word trade volume? Because it is easy to say it is a population, a big population worth of 4 billion people, but what does it mean in miles of railways, number of ports, number of airports, miles of pipelines? And the first number that they had is the population, 4.4 billion people compared to the 7 billion on Earth. So it is a huge amount of people. In this way, what did they figure out? They figured out that they need now to monitor the dissemination and reception of the proposal, because the proposal went to other countries, but how did they receive the proposal? And how did they start to chit-chat among themselves about the proposal? So here starts this huge new network of communication, of diplomacy, of trade that is moving. It is not only in history that things happen. This happened in the present with a high speed. But the other question is, how can we detect it? And they built up this animated system in which they want to have dates, and the news agency paper starting from the Global Times. So the first news about President Xi Jinping proposal came from the Global Times in China. And after spread it around all over the world, and after that we have articles and links to texts that we can find. And the idea, the future work is the reception in countries and social media, and it is what we were proposing in our paper. So a database animation project in which the reception is quite simple, the animation, because when the news reaches a country, it lights up in either green, positive reception, or black, negative. So the proposal is accepted or refused. And so the event, news, and response starts to build up a thing. And the second part is the monitoring of social media in the project. So see how people react to this proposal. In this way, they want to move from monitoring to predicting, which is in the near future, and see how the reception works. What I figured out, so I was just there assisting them, so I was really amazed at what they could figure out. Because if you look at the literature about the Silk Road, if you browse your media and newspaper articles, you don't find anything like that. And it was quite powerful in order to say, if we want to understand events in the present, we need to link to the treasure of human experiences connected to that event. And they picked up the idea that we need automatic systems in the news. It is what Microsoft is pushing to do. To have these automatic narratives that come from papers, from journal articles, that give you the answer to what you are reading on the newspaper now. At the same time, they went back to the key question, because world peace is never granted. And the idea that we need to understand what is going on came to them in a very powerful way. So said that, it was just to say what can happen in short animations and how you can collect the data for your talks to transform them in 3-4 minutes animations. If we have your items parsed in this way with 40 slides, very well organized with short text in order to have a narrative and a rhythm, we can work on it and provide a platform with these things. The other is for papers, for traditional papers, for the book, and it could be the book which that we will use to promote the new idea of maritime heritage that came out from this conference. But I'm sorry to ask you that we need to work a bit more. The conference was quite successful. I'm very happy of the results. But to put together present and the treasure of human experiences, as you could see from students here, is something that we are asked to. And from this second half of this day, we saw that the industry is ready to have a feedback from treasure of human experiences. And we need to enhance in a unique society to work on these topics. We had the key countries to work on it. So we have everything we want. We have a country here that is proposing to be the hub for this kind of studies and promoting a new science of heritage. So welcome again to this new community, and thank you very much. It's not for me, so I think we should close thanking really the people that help us to do it. And we need to thank, first of all, the MPA and Paralimes for making it possible for funding this meeting, which was quite a good effort. So to have all of you here to organize everything. And last but not least, the people that really made it possible. And we have Karen on the side of Paralimes, and all of you know her better than the organizer, I think, because she was with you before the conference. She was with you every minute during the conference, and she will be with you later for the other issues that you will find. And we need to, I'm very pleased to thank Serene and all the staff of the MPA that was with us, and again our staff here at ADM, as you can see there in the booths that help us in this day. So it was something like a 20 people effort, the organization of this conference that put together 24 people from 15 countries. Thanks again to all of you that help us to make it possible.